G'day, welcome to the Unofficial Scorecard Podcast, a podcast where we talk all things boxing and occasionally the wider world of combat sports. This is episode 71, and today on the show, guys, to kick off 2025 on the pod, we are joined by the Code Sports leading combat sports writer, the lead combat sports writer in just about every capital city's major newspaper, the man with the best fight night coverage in the country and returning mate of this show, and top bloke, Brendan Bradford. Guys, as I mentioned, this is the first pod of the year to kick off 2025, so I thought who better to set the tone and get the ball rolling than the man who is ringside at every major fight involving some Australian boxing. That is Brendan Bradford. So Brendan and I jumped straight into it. We had to obviously go over the very disappointing and, shattering streak of bad luck that Sam Goodman went through. We also jumped into, of course, Jai Opetaia's first world title defense of the year. Jai was the first one to defend a world title this year. How amazing is that? And that awesome Tasman show from earlier in the month. What was interesting about the timing of this pod, guys, and quite fortunate as well, in the past when I've had Brendan on, obviously we've had such a heavy focus on Australian boxing, but putting the schedule together, I noticed that the Australian boxing season, quote unquote, doesn't really get going till kind of mid to late February. So a lot of the fights we reviewed and previewed coming up were international, which I haven't spoken a ton about a lot of international boxing with Brendan. So it was actually a little bit of a gear change and one I really enjoyed. Brendan's got such a great outlook on the sport. He's so respectful, so thoughtful, so in tune, and so detailed. And I just really like to pick his brain. And it was good to do it on sort of a more broader global sense this time with some world boxing that's been going on recently and upcoming. So, and then of course, guys, we bookended it at the back with some Aussie boxing previews, culminating in the Saturday, the March 1st, free on Fox and KO card, headlined by Liam Wilson and Yusuf Dib too. Also in there, guys, the theme of 2025, I think there's going to be some large narratives and themes that play out, and I think the biggest one is DAZN buying Foxtel and the implications that will have on Australian boxing broadcasting moving forward. So, not that Brendan or I have any inside information, but we sort of got the conversation started, and again, it's going to be one that we're going to be having probably throughout the year to a lot of different people, just to find out how this affects us watching our favourite sport. And we also spoke about the Ace Boxing and 7+ relationship, which again is another narrative moving forward that we're going to have to keep an eye on all year. But as usual, guys, there are a ton of tangents in between. Brendan's just so much fun to talk to. If we were at a pub having a few beers, we probably would have had a 5-hour version of this conversation, but I'm pretty sure no one wants to listen to that, so we kept it to about an hour 20. But guys, let's stop doing this intro and let's hear from the man himself. Well, here I am joined by Code Sports combat sports writer, the lead combat sports writer in just about every capital city's major newspaper, the man with the best fight night coverage in the country and returning mate of the show, Brendan Bradford.
Awesome to be back. Oh man, what an intro. That's the first time I think I've been on, and we've got video capabilities. We're on YouTube now as well, so that's exciting. And it's been a while since I've been to a fight, so itching to get back into it too.
Well, mate, last time you were on, you were coming live from Vegas in the media room for Zoo Fundora, right. I think?
Yeah.
So,
oh, man, that seems like a long time ago.
Sometimes it's the Horden Pavilion, sometimes it's Vegas, but that's boxing.
Yeah. It's funny, I went to, so it was, this was late last year. It was, I was in New York for covering the UFC, and I did just like a mad day trip to Dallas to cover Tyson, Jake Paul, did the UFC, and then the following Wednesday, so like 3 days later, I was at Penrith Leagues Club for what should have been Tyson Pedro's fight with Chris Terzievsky, and ended up being Paulo Alcuso and Clay Waterman. But it was funny. It's going from AT&T Stadium, 80,000, the next night at Madison Square Garden, to I don't know how many people were at Penrith Leagues, but just the diehards out there for that one.
Well, mate, that is a great segue, because I didn't even write this down on the little notes rundown that I do. But that card that you just referenced, the Tyson Pedro debut and Terzievsky pulling out, I only know rumors. Like, what was the story? What happened there? That was insane.
It was crazy. It was a very, very wild sort of 48 hours in boxing and in combat sports. What will I say? I think if you've heard the rumours, I'll leave them as rumours. I'm not gonna, I don't want to get into too much trouble. But look, I would assume that if you're listening to this pod, you've probably heard some of the rumours. And there's rumours both ways, I suppose.
Yeah.
And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But I think Pedro's back on, I forget the date, late February, 22nd potentially, against an American. That I think that is the plan. Back at Penrith, late Feb. I think it's the 22nd. I might have that date wrong.
It's the 26th, I think.
26th.
Yeah. It's JNI Promotions, isn't it?
That's the one. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I did write that down. Yeah, Clay Waterman's on the card, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, okay. So sometimes the rumours are kind of true, but anyway, no pressure. But we'll make a start because there's a ton to get to as we were talking about just before we hit the record button, Brendan. So I always find the easiest way to do it is to just go chronologically. So the before we actually get to the fights, it is kind of chronologically, but last year unfortunately Sam Goodman has found himself in a little bit of an unfortunate streak of bad luck, and I think you were actually present at the sparring session the first time he got cut. Like, what can you sort of tell us about it, mate? It's we all hear the disappointment and we've read the stories and stuff like that, but seeing it firsthand, like, what a moment!
Oh, it was a front row seat just to heartbreak, really. So yeah, it was his last spar. I think he was down for maybe 6 or 8 rounds. I forget the guy's name. He's an English fighter. Trains a lot, spars a lot with Nick Ball. So good English fighter. I can't remember the guy's name. I think maybe it was probably 4 or 5 rounds in. There was a big crowd. Like, it was his last sort of sparring session, and he was supposed to leave for Japan the next day. So there was sort of, I think, St. George Dragons coach Shane Flanagan was there, Kyle Flanagan was there, a couple of local sort of sports figures in the mix. There's probably 30 odd people come down to sort of see Sammy Goodman in his last thing and sort of send him off, I guess, to go and fight Naoya Inoue. This was early December, by the way, so this was the first one, and then. They got into an exchange, and the sparring partner knew straight away, like, he could obviously see sort of something's cut open, and I think Sam initially, you get hit, but you don't really know how bad it is, so he wanted to keep going, and the guy just said, "No, mate, have a look at that. He's got headgear on. And he turns around. I'm standing like right there. Just blood all down his face, and it was obvious."
Sorry, Brendan, was it a punch? Was it an elbow? Like, did you see what actually caused the initial?
I didn't see what it was, and then we were looking back. So Fox Sports had their camera there, and so he was filming the whole thing. And even on watching it back, it's hard to make out what it was. At one point, I thought it was just a really wild head clash, where his head's gone sort of up under the. He's wearing headgear, so it comes down, and it's just got caught under there. But then there is a punch or two that it could possibly be as well. So I think it was a punch, and just like really awkward sort of angle, or maybe the way that the headgear come into the boxing glove as contact was made, something, because it wasn't, cuts around here, pretty common, but it was like right sort of on the eyelid, up in there. So just a freak sort of thing, and it was immediately obvious to sort of everyone that this is not good. Brian Wilmot was there, obviously one of the best cutmen in Australia. Him and Stephen Edwards, probably the top two. He was there, had a look at it. He was trying to give reassuring words. We can glue it back up and you'll be right, and blah blah blah. And Alan Saunders, the doctor, I think that's his name. People know him. You would have seen him if you watched enough fights. He was there, sort of saying the same thing. We can sew it up and you'll be right to go. But You sort of 5 to 10 minutes later, it came down to Sam's manager, Pete Matrevsky, Baby Pete, and probably his coach, Joel Keegan, as well, just sort of said, no, you can't risk it, can't fight like this, we're going to have to pull you. That's when it really sank in, and he was icing it, sitting on the stairwell at sort of the entrance to the gym, just obviously, broke down in tears, and he thinks at that time his dream of fighting for a world title and the biggest payday he gets, he thinks it's just gone up in smoke. So, very confronting as well. Like it's, you just come and watch fights, and it's not really life or death, but this was big payday, chance of a lifetime sort of thing gone up in smoke. So really crazy couple of hours.
Man. And do you know the circumstances that led to it reopening again weeks later?
So I was actually on leave. So I was on holiday most of January, right? So I was back home in New Zealand and just, I don't know, making lunch or something. And I saw a message pop up on my phone. I saw the name on the message, and I was like, that is only really bad news. Like, that person is not messaging me right now with good news.
How's the holiday going, mate?
Yeah. And then like another 2 popped up from other people, like, mates and journos and stuff. And then I was like, oh, I'm not even going to look at that. I'd got my flights and accommodation booked the day before to go to the rescheduled fight. And I was like, that can't be good. And it's got to be to do with Sam Goodman. I can't think of whatever else it is, unless someone's died. Yeah. And then, saw my boss messaging me and said, oh, mate, sorry, Japan's off. Sam's cut again. So I was like, oh, okay. So I actually don't know. I think what I gather is that perhaps after he got cut, he doesn't do any sparring for the better part of a month as the thing heals. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if this happened or not. Like, I've heard they weren't doing any sparring and it was just a freak sort of elbow as they were moving. I've also heard someone else that they actually were doing a bit of sparring. I'm not actually sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if, a couple of weeks before the fight, they just needed to have a hit out, right? Like, you're going to fight now, you're in a way, the whole team is super confident he can pull off an upset. I wouldn't be surprised if they just thought, look, we just want one spar just to make sure we can get through, get some sense of maybe timing, that kind of stuff, even make sure that the cut's not going to open up within 30 seconds once you step in the ring, and then goes again. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. I'm not sure. I don't know the full details, having heard a few different sort of theories.
Yeah, it's like, I guess there's 2 schools of thought with something like that, and you outlined it perfectly. One is wrap yourself in cotton wool and just get to the fight, get that payday, and go in compromise, and obviously not at 100% in terms of the preparation that you would have preferred to have had. And I'm sort of thinking you've hit the nail on the head, because the first time they got cut, all the details were out there, the footage was there. The second one, we don't know anything. It's a mystery. Yeah. So I think you might be right. I'm just sort of playing devil's advocate, but maybe they just did want to get that last spar in, or a couple of spars, or whatever it may be. If they did that, should they have wore one of those bar helmets?
Yeah,
probably. But then again, you hear fighters say some guys like those helmets, some don't, because they're so big. Your hands up being in a foreign position, and instead of slipping a shot by a little bit, you got to move your head so much more to get out of the way. It's kind of like a real uncomfortable helmet. I get it, but yeah, geez, man.
Yeah.
And you said it too, that payday is just gone.
The payday.
And you pull out twice, you're not going to get a third.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Yeah.
So unfortunate.
So, and that's just, and knowing sort of his mindset and mindset of his camp and stuff, just, they weren't there just to cash the check. They genuinely there. All the talk was, Inouye's got to get old soon. He was clipped early this year, last year. They were so confident. So I can see from their mindset why they wanted to have a hit out, why they wanted to have a good hard spar, risky as it was. I kind of understand the thinking, but yeah, shit happens. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, I'm such a fan of Sam. I really am. I'm super biased. I think the first time I saw him was his third or fourth pro fight. Followed ever since, probably much like yourself. I'm such a fan. I got a message from my old man maybe a couple of weeks ago or last year, whenever it was, because he loves true crime podcasts and stuff. And I think you were on it too. You and Sam were on true crime. Yeah.
Gary Jubilant. Yeah.
So my old man, he must have been listening to this pod, and he goes, "Mate, I thought you've always claimed to have made up the ghost." And I go, "Yeah, I did." And he goes, "Well, I just listened to this pod, and Sam reckons it's some American writer that did it." I was like, "What the hell? Oh. Come on, Sam. Give an obscure Australian podcaster some credit, man." I'm a fan.
We need to right the wrong there. I reckon. I don't know who the journo was, but I reckon he's listened to the pod, and he's taken that as his own. We need to put that on the record and say that you gave him the ghost nickname.
he's the ghost because his feet are so good. He's standing right in front of you, but you just don't know where he is.
He's not there. Yeah, exactly.
A couple of pods back, people can check it. It's on the record. But anyway, I'm such a fan of Sam. But the brutal, harsh reality is, with the cut opening up again, as we've sort of described and theorized, maybe the reasons it did happen. We still don't know. It's all conjecture, but. Overseas, this is such a bad look.
Yeah.
Overseas, they're saying things like, "Oh, what are these idiots? We always knew Australian boxing was, behind the times. They can't even get themselves to the fight. How reckless are these guys?" And I mean, again, as much as a fan I am of Sam, you sort of can't disagree with that either. I hope he gets another shot, but it just is such a bad look and so unfortunate. But I don't want to kick anyone while they're down. He's obviously, completely devastated, and fair enough, but. Yeah, it's just unfortunate all round. There's really not any positive to pull out of that situation at all, which sucks. But
yeah, it is tough, and I can sort of understand the overseas thinking as well. Like, just why would you do it? Why would you risk it? Right? Like, I get that as well. So I think May, June, hoping for a comeback for Sam.
Oh, okay.
But then sort of. It's boxing. Like, there's so many what ifs, right? Like, does Inoue go up? Are there going to be vacant titles on the line? I think I won't put it on the record, but one of the governing bodies, I can't remember if it's the WBO or the IBF, are happy to leave Sam as number one to get the next shot if Inoue goes up at a vacant title. But it's boxing, right? Like, things can change so fast. But there's still hopes that Sam could fight for, one of the vacant titles if Inoue moves up. But we'll see.
Yeah, well, from an Australian perspective, we keep our fingers crossed for him that he can get a bit of good luck to come out of this really, really tough situation. But we move on and we speak about boxing being unpredictable. We had the first world title fight of the year. Australia's own Jai Opetaia was supposed to be fighting Hussein Sin Cara, who broke his ankle 2 weeks out. So in slips your high school mate, David Yeager.
And so the funny thing, not the funny thing, is the I suppose ironic sort of thing about this is the morning Sam got cut, I was down at the gym, and we went to the cafe about 2 doors down. Some of his team, Sam was at the doctor getting stitched up. And was sitting there, and that's when I found out that Sin Cara was out. So within the space of 45 minutes, I don't know the timeline of when Sin Cara pulled out, but within the space of 45 minutes, it was basically 2 Aussies fighting for world titles to Sam pulling out, and we don't know what's happening with Jai. And I think it was a month out from that fight as well. So crazy, but yeah, David Yeager steps in. He went to Hamilton Boys High School a few years after me. He's a bit younger than I am.
Still counts.
But still counts. But yeah, that was. I think you might have messaged me saying, "Am I torn on this one?" And yeah, genuinely, Jai. I've been covering Jai for that long. He's just such a good bloke, and actually did an interview with him. I think it would have been November sometime, or maybe early December, up on the Gold Coast, and yeah, just such a massive, massive fan of Jai Opetaia. But then, obviously, I've got the hometown New Zealand roots with David Nika as well. So at the end of the day, I just went into that week again. I was off on leave, so I wasn't covering it at all. But just being like, this is cool. Jai, great bloke, awesome fighter, kid from Hamilton fighting for a world title on the Gold Coast. I'm just going to enjoy it and watch from afar. It was cool in the end, yeah.
Man, were you expecting David Nieka to come out as aggressive as he did?
No,
I did not expect that.
No. I honestly thought, look, Jai's on a different level. I was pretty, comfortable that Jai was going to win. Like I was back home in New Zealand, in Hamilton, so mates of mine that sort of, don't really know boxing, but obviously know Dave. Can he beat this guy? Who's Jai Opetaia? I was like, mate, Jai's a beast. Like, he's a monster. So I was pretty confident that Jai was going to win, but thought, maybe if Nika can go eight rounds, stay out of trouble, land a couple maybe. He gets on the world scene, he gets noticed, he gets a lot of credit. I didn't think he'd get on the world scene, get noticed, get a lot of credit for coming out swinging like that. So going into the fight, just going, sort of just happy to be here, to getting a fight like that, even better. It was great. It was awesome.
Oh, man. That was crazy. Like, I sort of thought pretty similar to you. I was confident in Jai, but I thought the way the fight would play out, I was expecting the first sort of 5 or 6 rounds to be real cagey. Like, I really thought Nieka would be switching back and forth stances, which he still did a little bit, but way more aggressively than I thought. And because he's so big and he's so tall and he's so long, he's also a little bit awkward. So I thought it might be difficult for Jai to sort of try and find him early, but man, Nieka came out banging, and Jai was like, "Sweet man, let's go!"
Yeah. And that was, that's the other thing as well, right? Like, Jai's always said, we can scrap if you want to scrap. Like, I love that. Yeah. He's also probably one of the best technical boxers on the planet. But so when Dave comes out with that aggression, for Jai to stand there and go, "Yeah, no, we're in the trenches now, let's go." That was awesome. Like, it was so cool. And then the finish as well, it was just devastating, it went viral and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. But I think, David Nieka now, everyone sort of knows. Hopefully he gets another couple of big spots, big fights overseas, things like that. Just for, it feels like he's going to put on a show, which is, at the end of the day, what you want, right?
Yeah, he's a brilliant commentator too, David Nieka.
Yeah.
He's fantastic when he's done commentary for the Tasman shows and stuff. But man, Jai's so real, isn't he? He's so
That's
real.
what I love about him, mate. Like, he said something, I can't remember if it was at a presser or in one of the interviews I watched in the lead up. He was like, I hate these interviews. I don't want to be talking to you. I just want to fight. It's like, I get it. Like, yeah, it's like, it's so real. It's great. I really like Jai Opetaia, yeah.
So you've been around personally, like, so many big name fighters, and even MMA fighters as well. Like, do you find that there's like there's something about Jai? Like, have you sort of found that compared to even other world champions and other combat sports people? Because just from my perspective, I haven't had the privilege of being around a lot of guys, but before the first Kambosos Haney fight, Anthony Cox, shout out to the Aussie boxing scribe legend,
one of the greats,
actually got me an invite to a gym down in Melbourne that Jai was sparring at, and he was sparring a pretty good guy. And they did 6 rounds, and like I've said it before on the pod, people are probably sick of hearing it, but my mind was blown. Like, I could not take my eyes off this guy, and he was kind of just going through the gears, turned it on when he needed to. Went down another couple of gears when he didn't have to, but it was brilliant. It was the most high level sparring I've ever seen. They get out of the ring, and then him and Mark Wilson, they did 12 rounds on the heavy bag, like real hard. And the bags were behind the ring, so I'm facing this way. Another one of my favorite fighters was sparring as well. And I can just hear this heavy bag behind me. I couldn't stop. I didn't watch the sparring. I just watched Jai hit the bag. It was like, there's something about him. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm gushing a bit. But do you find that compared to other world champions and stuff, that there is, like, Jai's got that it factor sort of thing?
Yeah. And I think I've mentioned this to a few people as well. There's something, and it's that vibe. I don't know what it is. It's the vibe of they're so self motivated, like so much self belief. Like it's not an arrogance thing. It's just like when you speak to Jai on Fight Week, he's just so focused, and it's like someone will ask about Zurdo Ramirez, and he's just like, I don't care. I want to beat this guy up, and I've particularly in the last sort of 12 months when you do these interviews in Fight Week and stuff, I see it in Jai, where it's just this steely thing. I really felt it in Liam Paro the week he was going to win it in the lead up to fighting Matthias, and Tim Tszyu Fight Weeks as well. It's the same kind of like just this. There's something about it, and just to go off your sort of gym story there, and I might have told the story on the pod before, but 2020 when Tim Tszyu was fighting Jeff Horn, or preparing to fight Jeff Horn, I was at Sporting News at the time, and we flew up to Queensland, and we got Jeff and Tim training and interview same day. So I think Jeff in the morning, then we went down to the Gold Coast to Tim. And for Jeff Horn, this was 2020, so 3 years after he'd beaten Pacquiao, he'd been a pro for, I don't know what, sort of 5, 6, 7 years. You know, he'd done everything. He'd sort of achieved everything. And I've done sort of interviews and training sessions and stuff, watched Jeff over the last couple of years, and there was something about this one. It was the Marvin Hagler quote, you know, it's hard to get up and run in the morning when you're sleeping in silk sheets kind of thing. There was just something lacking from the prep for the Pacquiao fights and even the Crawford fight where, yeah, like he'd reached the top. That's what it felt like. And then we went to see Tim the same day train, and it was just like, oh, dude, this guy is a monster. Like he's a mutant. Like he's not even human right now. Like the stuff that they were doing, and then so to see the hunger and the drive from Tim, and to see Jeff, you know, the former world champ, the darling, just the difference. I was like, oh, I think Tim Tszyu might be on one here. But it was just a glimpse, similar kind of thing.
Yeah, damn, that's wild. We'll get to Tim Tszyu a little later, but yeah, man, Jai's certainly set himself up for a massive year, which is hugely exciting. But we also had Justice Hooney on that undercard. Sort of got through relatively easily with respect against Sean Potgieter. Max McIntyre had a really good performance.
Yeah, one to watch.
Stoppage. Yeah, over Abdul Salim Saman, and Ben Marnie had a 10-round hit out. I think he won 100-90 on all three cards. So I thought the Chinese bloke definitely snagged a few rounds there, but anyway, whatever. Ben Marnie got the win. But what did you like from the undercard, mate?
Cool to see Justice Hooney back. I spoke to him also, not in the lead up to this fight, but you know, he fought twice in the space of about a month or so. So, sort of been a frustrating sort of couple of years for Justice. So hopefully he can just get back in the ring, you know, fight 3-4 times this year. So good to see him. He's made a few changes as well. I did a story with him that he'd sort of gone back to his old coach and had to have a sort of hard chat with his dad about sort of trying to move away from the coach-athlete relationship and just be father-son for a little while. So it feels like, yeah, with Justice healthy body, number one, but it feels like he's happy as well away from the boxing gym and his personal life, which is great. Because yeah, like again, just not to sort of sidetrack. I think I always sidetrack when we have these yards, but you know, Justice debuted in an Australian heavyweight title fight, right? Like his professional debut was on TV, so you get pushed so fast so early, especially around all the Olympics hype. So his, you know, when he was ranked within sort of eight fights as a professional, and like, how do you balance that? Like, how do you still keep learning, and how do you even just get opponents when you've got a ranking? And it's just hard to play those two off against each other. Everything becomes harder because you've got this high rank. Everyone sort of obviously knows how good you are or can be. They don't want to risk it. You can't just go fight bums in the street either. So, yeah, it was a tough sort of couple of years, I suppose, for Justice. And again, like you have your first couple of fights on TV and you get, main events and pay-per-view and interviews and stuff, and it all, I don't know, but if that was me, I'd be like, oh, this is pretty easy. This is all good. I don't know whether that was the same for him, but again, just hope to see more of him. Cool to see Ben Marnie back in action as well. It's been quiet for a little while, and Max McIntyre, certainly one to watch. He's got a couple of big finishes. I keep saying this year, but 2024. One to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, and he was so patient. Coming off a couple of first-round stoppages where he's so explosive, he was really patient for a young bloke. I thought that was a great sign too. So, yeah, it was a really fun card from Tasman. So, hopefully with the backing of DAZN and Matchroom, they're pumping a few more out because they've signed a few more guys too. But we'll get on to some more fights in just a tick, Brendan. I just noticed something on BoxRec, which is kind of, I don't know, weird, cool. I don't know what it is, but I think there's some sort of like international 3-round tournament going on. Because on the 12th of January in France, there was 66 fights in a night.
What fights?
Yeah, 66 3-round fights. So there were 2 first-round stoppages and 2 second-round stoppages. So 62 of them went the distance.
Oh, shit. That's the longest night ever.
That's 9.5 hours of scheduled fight time.
Oh, my God.
Then on the 18th, the next week, they had 81 3-round fights. Right? And there was a couple of stoppages. That was almost 11.7 hours of scheduled fight time. Then the next night, the 19th, they had another 47 3-round fights.
What are they doing over there?
I don't know, but in 8 days, I did the maths, it was almost 28 hours of scheduled fight time.
Yeah. I love watching fights. That's too much for me.
I'm leading the charge for these pay-per-views to quicken up and less fights. But I'm like, I don't want that. That's insane.
They must have had to get through that. Oh no, because I don't know. You must have had a couple of rings in the joint, those big amateur sort of tournaments.
Yeah. They must have, because that's too much. And imagine you have 78 fights or 81 fights, and then in between every one, you have to go to the desk and hear a rugby journalist talk about it. The event would go for 2 weeks.
You could were they selling tickets? How many fighters? I can't do that maths. You could sell a hell of a lot of tickets if you just have people coming through the gates all day. That takes a proper boxing nuffy to see that as well. To spot that on BoxRec.
But then on the same day in the Netherlands, there was 50 fights on a card. Right? And then, so the same day, in true Hayden Emerson style, in Canada's going, hey, Netherlands, hold my beer. We're going to do 59 3-round fights. I don't know what's happening, man. But
that's awesome.
There must be a 3-round international tournament going on or something. I don't know.
I'm trying to think. What are they? I don't know if there's something coming up or a world champs. I don't know. Qualifying things or something.
I wouldn't have a clue.
The other thing that's I don't know. They're trying to get off. Certain promoters trying to get off the ground. Get off the ground is 1-round fights. I've seen a 1 3-minute round fight, and I've also seen a 3-round fight that is only 1 minute per round. So,
okay, in Australia?
In Australia, in Sydney.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to look it up, but yeah, there's all sorts of various different ways to get into boxing, and I reckon if you're a heavyweight. You can get paid just for 3 minutes of work.
Well, mate, there's certainly some sort of international movement going on with this 3-round stuff. So, and tons of blokes want to compete in it. It looks like so.
Imagine live blogging it all. Far out.
Oh, Jesus, mate. Imagine if how do you go to the toilet when you're there live? You need to have a shower halfway through. It's insane.
Commentary? Is it the same commentators? How many refs? How many judges do they have?
These are great
We
questions.
have to look into this.
This is why you're a journalist. Why you're a world-class journalist. I just looked at it and went, man, that's crazy. I never thought about it that in depth. But so we'll keep our eyes peeled. There's definitely something brewing, something going on there. But we'll move on to Friday, the 24th of January, which was originally the rescheduled date for Sam the Ghost Goodman. His challenge for the undisputed super bantamweight title against Naoya Inoue. Moved in Yi Jun Kim, Australian-based South Korean, currently training up in Queensland now. I think you did some of the pre-fight stories on Kim Brennan, because I'd never heard of him. I didn't know anything about him, but certainly a tough but yet endearing background and everything he'd had to go through to get to this point. But he's going up against the best fighter in the world. You know, what can you do?
Yeah.
But, what do you make of that whole situation?
Yeah, on short notice too. I guess, one perspective is nothing to lose, right? Yeah, you're going to go fight Naoya Inoue, make I would assume a decent sort of payday, go and give it a crack. I don't know whether saying come on, 4 rounds into fighting those was a great idea, but you gave it a fair go. 4 rounds. That's almost par for the course for many Inoue opponents these days, right? So, an inspiring backstory. I think he was orphaned as a kid, and Mike Altamura, who I think everyone would know, sort of gave a really, really great sort of moving speech or thing at the press conference, which was really cool as well. Just touching on some of the backstory and how he was orphaned and fought out of it and still went on to pretty great things, right? Fighting for all the titles. So, absolutely. And again, look, he'll go on, keep fighting, hopefully made a bit of money and got to feel what it's like to fight Naoya Inoue.
Yeah, wow, unbelievable. And as you pointed out, that taking we've obviously spoken about Sam having to pull out for the second time, but on the flip side, Yi Jun Kim gets that call on 2 weeks notice or maybe 10 days or whatever it happened to be, and he was brave enough to say yes. So more power to him, and hopefully there's good things for him in the future. But it was a fantastic fight in the co-main. Jin Sasaki had a 12-round unanimous decision over Japanese journeyman Shoki Sakai, who I'd never heard of Shoki Sakai, but Jin Sasaki is must-watch TV when we are able to watch him on TV. I think Shoki Sakai is something like 28-14 or something like that. So going by his record, you would say a journeyman, but my God, mate, that guy can fight. I would love it to get him out here at welterweight or super lightweight for some of our guys to fight. And I'm not saying all our guys could beat him by any stretch, but he is the thing about Japan, it's so deep with talent. Like, you would just look at that BoxRec record and go, Sasaki's going to murk this guy,
Yeah.
But, God, Sakai can fight. Shoki Sakai can fight. Did you happen to see that fight on the...
I didn't actually see it. I just tuned in for the main event.
Yep.
For Inoue, I was a bit salty on it all. Like, I should have been there. Like, all week, just like, I should have been in Tokyo right now. But, so I almost begrudgingly just tuned in for the Inoue fight, but like you say, like 29-14 now. But when you sort of understand Japanese boxing at the moment, I can only sort of imagine the fights that he's at. 18-1 for Sasaki. That's good. Knowing the guys he's fighting and the level that they're at. So 29-14, you see that record and you think, he's fighting in Japan. This is a guy that's probably going to say yes to fighting anyone. Still got 29 wins, so he can fight. And like you say, I didn't see the fight, but it sounds like he can certainly throw down. So again, it's one of those ones, I think we've spoken about it before, is like, don't judge every fighter by the BoxRec record, because you never know you never know how they got there, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm hoping we see Shoki Sakai's name coming up on some sort of Australian show poster in the coming future, because he would be a fantastic asset to have over here for our guys. And we'll move on. Did you see on Sunday, the 26th of January, the Diego Pacheco and Andy Cruz doubleheader?
No, I didn't watch that. I saw some of the build up or the aftermath. Was there Andy Davis? Who do you have a run-in with?
Yeah, Keyshawn.
Keyshawn, eh? Yeah. That's the thing I saw out of the fight.
Keyshawn hates him.
Now that's one I get around.
yes, I want to see that fight ASAP. That freshman rematch. That'd be so good. But we'll jump to yesterday's fight. We're recording this on a Monday. It was kind of the return of like the big American pay-per-view.
It was.
So many years was where all the big fights were, and Saudi Arabia's kind of changes. So it was almost like nostalgic to get an American pay-per-view. And it's at such a great time for us in Australia too, starting at lunchtime. But we had David Benavidez with the unanimous decision victory over David Morrell. Cool Boy Steph now going by scooter. Stephen Fulton dominating Brandon Figueroa. Did not see that coming. Pitbull, Isaac Cruz, and Angel Fierro with a 10-round slugfest. I didn't see the first fight. Jesus Ramos Jr. and Jason Rosario. I only saw the last three. But mate, what a banger! How much fun was that to watch?
What a way to sort of kick off, I suppose, the American pay-per-view year, I suppose. And I was talking to someone else this morning, actually, just going from, let's say what you want about what the Saudis are doing, but there's very little atmosphere in Riyadh. And
have you been to a Saudi card yet?
Nah, never have.
Okay.
Been to a couple of UFCs in Abu Dhabi, but even there, there's vibe there. But the Riyadh, there's just not. I don't know what it is. They just haven't got that part of it quite right yet. So to get a big fight in Vegas, it felt like a big fight. Jesus Ramos, Jason Rosario, completely one-sided. Ramos maybe even could have finished it a couple of rounds earlier. Yeah, it was very, very one-sided. And then early fight of the year contender, Cruz Fierro. Everyone had said, this has got fight of the night written all over it. And it bloody lived up to it. It showed a few, I think, limitations for Pitbull. I think, when it's a scrap or when he's physically more powerful than his opponent, just that Pitbull approach works. But he needed a bit of finesse and a bit of technical nous yesterday, and he was just winging him for 10 rounds, which is great to watch as just an impartial fan. But if you're an Isaac Cruz fan, you want to see a little. I don't remember him throwing a jab, in the second half of the fight. I don't think he did. And then the main event, like almost another. I thought I scored it very one-sided for David Benavidez, but that's so harsh on David Morrell. I thought it was a bloody good fight for the first 5 rounds until Benavidez took over. Maybe Morrell won the last round or two. But the scorecards and my scorecard certainly didn't reflect actually how good of a contest it was, particularly early on anyway.
Yeah, well, when was the last pod we did? Last year. I don't think I even spoke about this fight, but I'll put my hand up. I told people, just in real life, I had Morrell with the upset.
Yeah.
I was pretty confident it was going to be Morrell's coming out party, and I totally agreed with everyone who was saying the experience is going to be a factor. He's never been on the big stage. All completely true and total valid points, but no one's fought anyone until they have. And no one's been on the big stage until they have. So there's a first for everything. And I just really thought David Benavidez, I know he had injured hands, but I still thought he struggled with the size of Vosdik.
Yeah.
Because he's always been bigger, taller, and longer, even though he's a pressure fighter. But he's always had a bigger frame than the guys. I thought he struggled with someone his own size. And Morrell was the same size, if not slightly taller, a little bit longer, wide in the shoulders. Yeah, I was really confident Morrell was going to get it done, but I thought the biggest difference in this fight, and there's many angles you can go and technique and all that sort of stuff, but the biggest thing for me was the conditioning. I thought the conditioning and the work rate of Benavidez was just too much for Morrell. You could see at times where Morrell was fighting in spurts, and there were even times where, and Benavidez has kind of got that weird, he doesn't parry shots, but he kind of just puts his arms out there as this like impenetrable wall to try and punch through. And there were times where Morrell, he looked buggered to me. He was waiting for that second wind and it kind of never came. But he would almost throw a 1-2 and move back when he wasn't even actually trying to hit the target, the head. He was just trying to punch the gloves, buy some time and some space, just to get a breath and sort of recoup and get through that second half of the round. But Benavidez just kept pushing, and there was many technical things he'd done, which were great, both guys. But the biggest difference for me was the conditioning of Benavidez.
And especially, I think you touched on it, like the last we saw of Benavidez, I was like, first time up at the weight. And I was like, well, he didn't look great, right? When was that? That would have been, it was a while ago. It was like June, July last year.
Yeah. Vosdik, wasn't it? That was his
yeah. First fight at light heavy, right? Yeah. And I was like, he did look, and physically he looked completely different to how he looked yesterday. Yeah. So like you say, the conditioning, he was showboating into round 10. And then Morrell, or round 11, I can't remember which one it was. And then Morrell had a bit of a comeback, like just a desperation sort of thing. And there's the only time Benavidez looked in a spot of bother. But for every time Benavidez hit him, he would come back. Like he would obviously get hit, he'd be losing the round, but he'd come back with something, just to let you know he was still there, Morrell. Yeah, it was a great fight. It was one of those ones I'll probably go back and watch it again. It was that good, that entertaining, and hopefully sets up an even bigger fight between Benavidez and either Benavidez or what's his name, Benavidez or Bivol, far out, and which is that's in another couple of weeks as well. So.
Yeah, 22nd. But mate, what did you make of the? And I think Thomas Taylor is the best non-Japanese ref in the game. I think he's really good. What did you make of the point deduction?
Watching it live, I was like, that is crazy. That is absolutely ridiculous. They showed a replay, and I was like, okay, maybe, yeah, maybe. I still lean towards it was an overreaction. But less like angry about it than what I was after I watched the replay. But I certainly think, I don't think it should have been a point deduction at all.
Yeah, I was the same. I was actually pretty outraged, but because Benavidez threw the first one after the bell.
So that's where I can sort of see. I was like, Benavidez was still going. Benavidez was attacking him. The bell rings, and there was I felt a decent amount of time after the bell before Morrell swung. So I can kind of see, but mate, it was so loud as well. Like, you might not have heard it. It was genuinely that those last couple of rounds was pretty loud. So I think it's an overreaction. I don't agree. He's a great ref. But I think he might have got that one a bit wrong.
Yeah. But
also didn't. Well, I was also like, that's not a knockdown either. About a minute earlier, but I think again, replay showed that it was a punch and probably was a knockdown, even though he looked a little off balance as well, Benavidez. But this is why we're sitting at home watching, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. But that just kind of annoyed me. I thought it should have just been play on. But again, the 10-8 wasn't going to make any difference on the cards. I thought Benavidez was clearly ahead, so it's all kind of it didn't affect the outcome, which is the main thing.
I was actually surprised that two of those cards were 115, 112. I thought not there's anything wrong with it. Like a couple of those early rounds were genuinely competitive, but I did think it was going to be a clear 118s, 119s all round kind of thing. Closer than I thought.
Yeah, when they had the 7-5, I was like, what? But
I
mean, it always looks different up close, so I wouldn't know. But mate, cool boy Steph, Stephen Fulton in that co-main. Most of the boxing world was writing him off, and I mean, I wouldn't say I was writing him off, but I was certainly thought the career momentum was on Figueroa's side. But yeah, absolutely fantastic performance. Did you see that coming?
Yeah, no, I didn't see it coming at all. I was very much in the camp of, this is Brandon Figueroa's fight. I assumed he was going to win, and and it's a springboard kind of fight for him. And then Steph Fulton walks out in jorts and Timberland, and I'm like, oh man, what a way to go, man! He's about to go and lose, looking like he's come off the construction site, and then he goes and puts on that performance. Not particularly close. Not, it was tremendous. Yeah. Again, another one where I'm just looking at the scores now. 2 116, 112, and a 117, 111. Again, I thought could be 119, 119s, 118s.
Yeah, absolutely.
Incredible performance, and one of those guys following. I always find it interesting to see what happens after guys fight in a way. We were talking about in a way just before, and yeah, maybe there's life left in Steph Fulton still.
Yeah, going by that performance, absolutely. I think he's training with Boy Steph now as well. So he's got great fighters around him. Andy Cruz is in that camp also, and I saw a lot of people, it's on Twitter, so who knows, but social media, and people were saying after the weigh-in, Cool Boy doesn't look good. He's not really cut up and defined. We don't think he can carry the weight and all that sort of stuff. And I didn't really have an opinion either way. But then you look at what played out in the fight, which I didn't predict or see coming. But he seemed so comfortable at every range. He wasn't rocked. He never breathed heavy. And I was just sort of thinking about it afterwards. And I'm like, I reckon they did, tons of sparring for this camp. It wouldn't surprise me if Bozy Ennis was like, mate, forget this strength and conditioning, mate. It's not bodybuilding. We're going old school. You're going to run in the morning and box in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Style. You know what I mean? Because he was so comfortable. Brandon Figueroa was a rough guy, and he started to sort of get portions of the rounds on his terms later in the fight, as Cool Boy was kind of slowing down a little bit, but still doing enough to win the rounds, I thought. But Fulton was just so comfortable there, whereas the first fight, you could tell he was uncomfortable there. So whatever they did in preparation was absolutely sensational. And I can't wait to see what's next for Stephen Fulton.
Yeah, looking forward to his next fight day kit as well, and boots.
Well, next time he needs a tool belt.
Yeah, a hard hat as well. Yeah, maybe some high vis as he walks out.
Exactly. A couple of travellers in the esky for afterwards. Commit. You got to commit forward. So. But Brendan, if it's all right, mate, there's just a couple of things. We'll get into some fights to preview for the rest of the month coming up shortly. But there's a couple of things just related to Aussie boxing I wanted to throw at you just to get your thoughts on. And yeah, well, it's hard to get answers on these things, and I can't think of anyone that is more sort of connected to the game than you are. So hopefully you can shed a bit of light. But everyone was a little bit surprised, myself included, when on which one of the No Limit cards is it? Anyway, where there was a hell of a lot of ace boxing fighters at the press conference when it got announced, and we all started scratching our heads, going, "Oh, what's going on here?" Ace Boxing had a terrific year with the Premier Boxing Series on 7+. Some awesome fights, awesome shows. I thought it was nothing but a success. And then you start to, think, well, why are Ace putting some of their best fighters on a rival network or promotion? It leads to the natural question: what is the status of Ace's relationship with 7+?
I'm not 100% sure. But I know that they're doing. It's almost like a co-promotion with No Limit to have their fights and fighters on Fox Sports on that platform. So basically, that's what it's March 1, right? That the Liam Wilson Yui Dib card up in Brisbane. For all intents and purposes, it's an Ace show. I think that they're doing all the all that production that you see at an Ace show. That's what they're doing. And in terms of cross promotion, it's No Limit and Fox Sports. Got to be airing it, and obviously helping out with a couple of fighters and stuff on the card, Liam Wilson and so on. So yeah, I think it feels like there's sort of a new partnership, hopefully for Ace ongoing. Obviously, I'm probably a bit biased, but I thought they did, and I thought they did a great job on 7. it was a lot of fights. Like, there's a limited amount of fighters they had, and they had a lot of fight nights to put on. But I thought there were some cracking fights last year, and probably should have been sort of seen by more people. And I think you probably only your diehards were probably tuning into the 7 cards last year. So maybe if they're on Fox, bit of a bigger platform, bit of a bigger, I suppose, sort of machine behind it. They get a few more eyes on some of these great fights and great fighters that they've got as well. So again, biased. I'm probably a little bit biased towards it, but hopefully it's something ongoing that between Ace, Ange DiCarlo, and No Limit, Fox Sports, and the Rose Brothers.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more, mate. The more promoters work together, the better. You know, look at Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren. It's only good things happen for the sport, and opportunities get created for the fighters when they do that. So hopefully, Australian boxing is taking a leaf out of their book. But interesting to see what's going to happen with 7+ as we move throughout the year. If they're completely out, or maybe they've restructured the deal and it's 6 fight nights this year. Who knows? We'll just have to see what happens. But the other one, mate, and I really have no idea what the implications of this could be, but DAZN have they bought a percentage of Foxtel or the whole thing?
They've bought. It's the whole thing.
So
it's the whole. I should be.
Own...
Yeah, they own Fox Sports. It's going through that process. From what I understand, it's well out of my sort of range of expertise, but big sort of multi-million, sort of billion-dollar deals like this, it takes a lot of crossing the I's and dotting the T's to get over the line. So I think, I want to say later this year it'll be finalised, and then we'll see what that means for. Obviously, boxing is involved, but you're talking NRL deals, AFL deals, broadcast deals. So interesting to see what happens with those. I think those are probably the biggest impacts. But really interesting to see what happens in terms of broadcasting for boxing in Australia.
Do you have any sort of idea of what the implications could be, or?
No, no one I've spoken to either. Everyone's just sort of, we don't really know what it means or what it'll look like. Talking to a few people who've had sort of experience in takeovers in other industries, admittedly, but you sort of a big deal goes through, they sort of see how the whole thing works for a little while, maybe 6 to 12 months, and then they'll start implementing changes in what they want to do. So I think in the next sort of year or so, I don't think much will change. Beyond that, who knows? I genuinely have no idea. I'd just be speculating.
Yeah, okay. Well, man, there's always storylines in boxing. It's unbelievable, isn't it? There's so much stuff that goes on. But anyway, we'll get into some fights coming up, a few international ones. And then, as we mentioned that earlier in the pod, towards the end of the month, we start getting the Aussie stuff rolling out. But you spoke about him before. Keyshawn Davis is challenging for the WBO lightweight title on the 15th of February Australian time, which is a Saturday, against defending champion Denis Baranchyk. Are you as much on the Keyshawn Davis bandwagon as the rest of the world seems to be right now?
Yeah, I am. I am. I'm unashamedly on the Keyshawn bandwagon. Have for a number of years now. Just a superstar. Just fun story, interesting guy, fun fight style. I'm a big fan, and this is a great fight. Obviously, Denis Baranchyk undefeated. Who did he beat last year? He had a really good win last year. Yeah. Beat Navarrete, who was coming up. That's right. There was 3 weeks where you had Baranchyk, Usyk beat Fury, Lomachenko. Great couple of weeks for Ukrainian fighters in world title fights last year. So this is a cracking fight. Hard, tough fight for Keyshawn Davis. But absolutely pumped for this one. It's a good card. Xander Zayas is on the card as well. Jared Anderson.
And the guy Xander Zayas is fighting is 20-0. I mean, great record.
Slava Spoma.
Yeah, I
can't say I've ever heard of him. German.
And Abdullah Mason. Talk about being on bandwagons.
Far out, yeah.
seems to be fighting a pretty good guy, who last
Great
time
card.
out lost to Rolly Romero. So I don't know anything. I doubt we'd be getting it on TV here, but we might have to fire up the radios and give that one a listen
Yeah.
on Saturday the 15th, because that's a can't miss card on paper.
There's Nico Ali Walsh on the card.
Yeah.
Keyshawn Davis's brother too, I think. He's on the card as well.
I didn't.
That's a
get
great
that
card.
Yeah.
I think it's his brother. That's cool. I hadn't actually looked at the full card. It's a cracker.
Yeah.
You're trying to hit him up to try and get it on TV here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, I'm not quite as high on Keyshawn as everyone else is. I think there's been a bit of an overreaction, especially with that last fight with Gustavo Lemus, who, like, Lemus just served himself up on a plate to, the way he fought to Keyshawn. Like, you can't do that with someone's countering ability and the eye that Keyshawn has, and he just, did what he did. But credit to Keyshawn, because he snapped it straight off the table. He got served up to him. He ate it too. So
you still got to take it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I do like this matchup. But is Keyshawn like right up at that top end, the pointy end of the division yet? I'm not sure, but this fight's going to tell us a lot. So, and as you pointed out, it's a great all over card. So hopefully we can will that into existence for Fox Sports to pick up for us. But we'll see how we go. And we got the next day, Sunday, the 16th of February in the UK. A really interesting fight here, which could have implications for some Australian talent. Jack Catterall, sort of the uncrowned champion of that weight class the last couple of years, when he should have got that decision over Josh Taylor originally. He's fighting Arnold Barboza Jr. for the WBO interim super lightweight title. I know Barboza Jr.'s last fight was pretty lackluster against Jose Ramirez, but I'm keen on that, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Liam Parrow in with the winner or the loser.
Yeah.
Have you been keeping an eye on Jack Catterall the last couple of years, Brendan?
Since who did he? Yeah, he lost to Josh Taylor the first time around. Is when, and then obviously the rematch last year, 2024. So only a sort of a recent sort of band. But when Liam Parrow was in the mix, and it was Parrow Catterall. I don't know how sort of far along those
for years it seemed.
Yeah,
didn't it?
Yeah. He fought. That's right. He fought Dara Foley as well. He was busy the last couple of years, wasn't he? Interesting fight. Really interesting fight. Interesting to see what happens next with Parrow. But certainly, he'll be keeping a close eye on that one. I know there was talk of Parrow Kambosos at times. I think George has got a different opponent. So I don't know whether we'll see those two in the ring, but certainly, the winner or the loser, whatever they want to do of this one, I reckon Liam will be right in the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. So not only a good fight, but extra Australian implications, so it always piques my interest a little bit more as well. And just a quick shout out, Friday the 21st of February, a local fight show down in Melbourne. Kai Hodgson, 4-0, four knockouts, all in the third round, interestingly enough, is fighting the Indian fighter Lovepreet, who's 5-6, won his first 5 fights in India, lost the next 6, which were all in the UK. But massive shout out to Kai, and best of luck coming up. Hopefully there's a stream available for that, but those things tend to happen the week of, or sometimes even the day of the fight. Broadcast details for the smaller shows, so we'll keep our eyes peeled. But good luck to Kai for that upcoming fight. But we'll move on to Sunday the 23rd of February. You already spoke about it earlier, Brendan, and some are saying, and I am no historian, so I'm not going to weigh in on this argument, the best card ever.
I reckon it's got to be. It's got to be up there in the mix. I'm pretty sure it's Dan Rayfield has strong opinions on this, going back to...
What doesn't he have a strong opinion?
Yeah, that's true. Going back to some of the Don King cards of the early 90s and late 80s, where they were just stacked. It's kind of crazy. You go back and look at some of the, especially the Mike Tyson fights, and you see some of the guys on the undercards, and it's like, whoa. But this has got to be right up there. Like, this is incredible
Well, mate, I'll just list it so people know what we're talking about, and then we'll get your thoughts on it. But obviously, well, hopefully, with how injury-prone Benavidez is, it happens. But the scheduled rematch of Artur Benavidez and Dimitri Bivol. Daniel Dubois is fighting Joseph Parker, which I am not writing Parker off in that fight. We'll get to that. Carlos Adames is fighting Hamza Shiraz. Virgil Ortiz is fighting Israel Madrimov. Shakur Stevenson is fighting Floyd Schofield. Joshua Buatsi is fighting Callum Smith. And Zayli Zhang is fighting Ajit Kabayel. Just in terms of not running order, Brendan, but in terms of like most pumped to, not least pumped, because we're sort of pumped about it all, where does it sort of sit in the hierarchy for you?
Incredible. Look at these fights. Almost all of those fights could be main event in their own right, and on a different card on another night. I'm pumped for the rematch, but I'm mostly pumped for Joseph Parker, Daniel Dubois. Yeah. Joe, again, I'm probably more biased towards Joseph Parker than any other fighter in the world. Just the Kiwi connection, the heavyweight thing. What Joseph did last year, it was incredible. Well, I say last year. It was late 23 and then 24. The incredible comeback beats Wilder, beats Zhang, and thrown, catapulted back into world title contention. And I haven't looked at the odds, I suppose, but what Daniel Dubois did to Joshua, I'm assuming he's the favourite. Going into it, but I'm riding with Joe on this one. I think he's, just speaking to him over the last sort of couple of years ahead of some of the fights. He fought down in Melbourne, just made a few changes away from the ring in terms of diet and training, and this is the fight I'm tuning in for this card. Really, this is my main event for this one. But Virgil Ortiz Madrimov, what a fight! That's a headline fight. Shakur Stevenson would headline if this was back in America. It's what a card, man! What a card!
Even Joshua Buatsi, Callum Smith, I'm pumped for. That's a great fight. I love that fight. But to your point on Joseph Parker, this fight could not come at a better time for him, as you pointed out. This streak of momentum, and Dubois is a huge puncher. But so was Deontay Wilder, and so was Zayli Zhang. So it's like nothing that, is Dubois' delivery system better? I would probably say so. So that presents its own challenges, but it's not like he's going to be shocked by a big puncher. So, and him and Andy Lee seem to have really hit a good groove now. I'm pretty biased too. Not as biased as you on this one, Brendan, but I reckon Parker's a real chance here. I would not be surprised at all with a win. Yeah,
absolutely. And when Dubois jumped in the ring after Usyk beat Fury, and I was like, hang on here, you got a bit of a task ahead of you before you start looking at this, a rematch with Usyk. Again, it could be, is he looking past Parker, for all the belts and all the money in an Usyk rematch? Maybe that could be a factor, but Joseph's a massive chance.
Absolutely, but that is a brilliant card. I wish it was in America, just so we didn't have to wake up so early. And
it's it's going to be great. Like the fights will be good, and I suppose the build up will be good, but it's going to take like 10 hours.
It's going to be like one of those cards from France.
You might as well put about seven of those 3-rounders in between some of these fights, so they're going to give away a Jeep and whatever.
Yeah. I'd rather watch a 3-rounder in between fights than bloody hearing every pundit on the world's bloody commentary on the fight we just saw. But anyway,
it was the Madrimov Crawford fight. Even though it was in LA, and it just took hours because it was a good card as well. Some great fighting. Pitbull was on the card. Who else? The co-main. Pretty well, maybe that was Pitbull, but it was a good card. Yeah. But they just dragged it out, and it was like, I swear there was about an hour in between the co-main and the main event. And by the time Crawford finished, I was like, I don't even care about this anymore. I mean, it was dark. It was dark when I started watching this, and now it's afternoon.
It's almost dark again.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
These marathon cards. I guess that's kind of the way Turkey likes it. I guess he's funding these things, so he gets it the way he wants. But yeah, I'd love to see him. That's what I loved about the PBS.
Yeah.
When Ace just give us the fight. Do your little presentation at the start. Then we don't need to see anything else besides the ring or a video package for the rest of the show. Pump these things out like an amateur show and let us get on with our lives.
Yeah.
But I am complaining really badly about watching too much of my favourite sport. So, whatever. But we'll see how we go. Yeah, but that is an absolute banging card. But the next day, Monday, the 24th of February, talking about banging cards, we got Junto Nakatani back defending his WBC bantamweight title against David Cuella Contreras, who's 28-0 with 18 knockouts, but he's never fought outside Mexico. I've never seen him, but his record and his nationality would suggest that he's going to be pretty tough. Is it enough for Junto? Who knows? We'll see how we go. A really good fight. Seiya Tsumi's fighting Daigo Higa, defending his WBA bantamweight title. A rare time where someone coming off a loss gets another world title shot, but that was such a great fight. With who's the guy that beat Jason? Shiki Takai. So I actually don't mind that. And in Japan, they sort of get away with a little bit more, but for good reason. And more interestingly enough, Jason Maloney is back against the Japanese superstar Tenshin Nasukawa. We're biased Aussies from the Oceanic region. So we'll start there. What were your thoughts when you saw Jason landed the Tenshin fight, who I think is only 5-0 at this point, Tenshin?
5-0, but has super experience in kickboxing, right? Nasukawa? Yeah. Awesome for Jason. Like, there's been times for both of them, sort of, and you would think at this time right now, Andrew, I don't know what he's got coming up, but there've been times with both brothers where it's like, oh, is that it? Or robberies, things like this, just things not going their way. So really stoked that Jason's getting a big fight on a big card as well back in Tokyo. They seem to be superstars over there, right? Which is awesome. So really stoked for Jason to get this one. And Monday fights the best. Like it's like free boxing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I like Jason big in this fight, but the thing that worries me, the Japanese really don't miss. They love throwing their guys in early, and they always get it right.
Yeah,
I'm a believer in Jason for sure. I'm going with sort of, probably the larger opinion of everyone else and the masses as well. I think it's too early for Tenshin. I don't think he has enough experience, but similar to what I said about Dave Morrell, I thought it was going to be his coming out party. It looks like the Japanese think it's going to be Tenshin Nasukawa's coming out party as well. So that does have me worried. It's sticking in the back of my mind. But how do you sort of handicap Jason's chances in this one?
Yeah, like you say, the Japanese aren't going to throw their guy, willy-nilly into fights like they. Nasukawa's been given this spot because they obviously believe in him. Again, I'm backing Jason all the way. I just hope it's not one of those ones where the Japanese are pulling the strings. They can say, this is a guy that is a name, but we think our guy can beat him. But yeah, I'm all behind the Maloneys whenever they fight. Just good fighters, but great dudes as well. Just good people.
Yeah. Nah, for sure, mate. But I reckon with Jason's participation on that card, I'd be pretty confident there'd be some sort of TV for us over here as well, which is great.
Yeah, surely.
If not, it shouldn't be too hard to find either on the radio style. But I don't know what to expect in the main event. Like, Nakatani's on a tear. I've never seen Contreras before, but I mean, going up against Junto at the moment is one of the toughest things you could possibly do in the sport. So we'll see what happens there. But what did you make of Daigo Higa getting that world title shot coming off a loss?
Yeah, it was just like you say on the main event. I've been bitten that many times that I'm not like, I always say like I was going to bet on this fight or whatever without knowing the other guy. I'm not doing that. I don't know anything about Contreras, so I'm absolutely staying away from this one. Because you never know.
I've lost too much money doing stuff like that as well.
Yeah. It took me long enough to learn my lesson. Um, so yeah, interesting. Yeah, like you say, really interesting situation where a fighter gets another world title fight, another big shot coming off a loss. Obviously, sort of proved enough to get that shot, and interesting fight. But don't know how it's going to go. No idea.
Yeah, sometimes that's good though.
Yeah, that's what you want, right? You sit through so many fights and in boxing and mainly boxing, but sometimes UFC as well. It's like, oh, I know who's going to win this. I know what they're after. So to actually get a fight where you're like, I don't know who's going to win this. I'm just going to sit here and watch it. It's pretty rare these days, and always appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. And we move on. This is a pretty loaded week because on Wednesday, the 26th of February, we spoke about it earlier, a JNI promotion. Jackson John England's back against Jason Kanoy Menegos, who's 30-12-2, and he's only stopped once out of those 12 losses. Again, another bloke I've never heard of. Jackson John England got that win at the Gather round last year over Jamel Herring, and seemingly hasn't been rewarded for that level of a win. So I'm not really sure. He seems to be in sort of career limbo at the moment, waiting for a big opportunity. Hopefully it comes for him. Clay Waterman's back against King Davidson for some reason. Randall Quinlan's back. Alex Leapai Jr. And as you mentioned, MMA fighter Tyson Pedro's debut that was supposed to be against Chris Terzievsky is also on that card as well. First things first, just from a selfish point of view, Brendan, is that going to be a pay-per-view card on Stan?
See, now I don't know, because when Tyson was supposed to fight Terzievsky, it started out as a Stan pay-per-view, but then I think it was just on Stan. You didn't have to pay extra for it. If you had Stan, you got the fight. I think that's by fight week. That's what they settled on. I'll have to look into that because I'm not 100% sure what they'll do. But Tyson Pedro, Carlos Welch, Jackson England, Clay Waterman, enough fighters on there that you might be able to sell it as a pay-per-view. But hopefully it's just a Stan card, and you can watch it on a Wednesday. I'll have to look into that. Yeah.
Well, if they want anyone to watch it at all, don't make it a pay-per-view.
So make it pay-per-view. Make it free, or make it, if not free, make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, well, see, I thought it was still pay-per-view, so I didn't end up actually being able to watch that card, which had Paulo Wakuzo and Clay Waterman. I've never seen that fight, which is a shame because I was, talk about career limbo. What is going on with all the momentum that Paulo Wakuzo had is just evaporated. Unbelievable, but that's a conversation for another pod. But we'll see what happens there. But like you said, there are some interesting fights with some interesting names there. A couple. Let's just hope it's easily accessible because, we want to be able to watch these fights.
Yeah.
But and we'll finish up with this card as well, Brendan, here on Saturday, March the 1st. Kind of breaking the rules and going into the next month, which I tried not to do, but it's one day, so whatever. Free on Fox and KO. This is the card we were talking about earlier with a lot of ace fighters on it. It's sensational. Liam Wilson and Yusuf Dib too. Jalen Tate's fighting John Manu, which is a sensational fight. Jalen Tate stepping up to super lightweight. Vegas Larfield's back against Gui Ming Lee. Jack Bowen looks to be in a really tough fight against... Oh, man. I don't know if you're looking at this name as well, but I'm going to have a crack at it, Brendan. Abul Khair Shegalayev, who I think is 9-0, but looks to be pretty tough. Uzbekistan or something like that. All Action Machine Nicola Costello is back against Brianna Harrison. Kira Rustin is fighting Silvini Nawai, and it's the pro debut of Shannon Davey. I love everything about this card. As you mentioned, the fact that it's free and accessible to everyone is excellent. And the more people that can see it, the better. This is how you actually build the sport and get more fans to come and watch. So, I love it. Yeah,
awesome. And the sort of word is if Liam Wilson wins, he's on to a rematch with Navarrete. Apparently, that's what they're looking at. And I need to look. I need to watch the first fight between these two, Wilson and Dib back. From what I remember, remember the finish. It was obviously quite a sudden, shocking finish. But a few people have said it was actually a really close fight before the finish. So I'll watch that back. Vegas Larfield, he's sort of one on the rise, sort of a rising star. Jack Bowen as well. Kira Rustin is definitely one to watch. You would have seen him on those ace cards last year. Shannon Davey, straight off the Olympics into a pro debut too. So, a lot to like about this card, and I suppose it just shows what you can do what happens when ace and sort of no promoters are able to work together and put on fights like this and fighters like this for everyone to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And, mate, I did lie a little bit. One more thing for you. It was recently confirmed yesterday, very convenient timing, that No Limit dropped the news during the fights. But Tim Tszyu is back, and he's fighting Joey Spencer.
Yep.
You like the fight, mate? Do you think it's the appropriate step for Tim bouncing back after those 2 losses?
It feels like it is. Again, I don't know much about Joey Spencer. But it feels like the kind of level of fight that you would take after, a few setbacks last year. Word is, I think still Newcastle is still the front runner. There's talk it could be over in Vegas on a Fundora undercard. It might even be interstate. They haven't quite locked it in, but Newcastle definitely the strong front runner. Joey Spencer, his only loss is to Jesus Ramos, who fought yesterday, beat Jason Rosario, and who looks like a real prospect. And again, you don't want to be just going straight into Virgil Ortiz or someone like this or Majumov. You come back, have a couple of fights or a fight or two back in Australia, rebuild that confidence, get some of that momentum back, and then go on and try and take on the world again. But this is what you do. This is the next step. He's training back in Sydney, back at the gym in Rockdale for this one, sort of taking it back to where it all started, I suppose, is how you'd put it. So interesting to see, I suppose, what he looks like when fight comes around and what the reaction is too, because Australian sports fans can be a fickle bunch, but hopefully the Tim Tszyu train continues on and he bounces back after a couple of setbacks last year. I actually spoke to Johnny Lewis last week about Tim and his career and what happens next, and he said, look, mate, strike the Fundora fight, basically, because it's a split decision. He almost won it, and he couldn't see for most of it. I think sort of the world knows how good he was after that. Yes, the Murtazalia fight was a setback, a speed bump, but he'll be back, and Johnny Lewis is pretty confident that he'll be back on the world stage sooner or later. So first steps early April, 6th I think, 6th or the 9th. Step one, back on the road back.
Yeah, well, mate, I completely agree with your thoughts on is it the appropriate step. I think it's exactly the appropriate step. Guys, when they take a couple of losses, they still want to stay at the same level they were at and have another opportunity and all that type of thing. But the reality of the situation is 2 losses, the circumstances are what they are, but it's 2 hours. You have to take a step down on the rung of the ladder, and this seems like PBC is still happy to work with him and maintain that relationship by, I guess, the Joey Spencer fight happening at all, which is a pretty positive indication for the rest of Tim's career. But I agree totally with you. The perfect step down with respect to Joey Spencer, and hopefully Tim comes back firing. But it's going to be interesting because you never know what Tim Tszyu you're going to get until he jumps in the ring. It's is he going to be that calculated tactician like he was against Mendoza, or is he going to be an all-out psychopath like he was against Mirzaliev and and others, and Terminator mode like Terrell Gaucher? We just don't know. So yeah, hopefully it's more of the Brian Mendoza version than the others we spoke about. But, whenever Tim fights in this country, it's big business, and no doubt you'll be ringside covering it as you always do, expertly on Fight Night, Brendan. But just to finish up, mate, what's coming up personally for you in the next couple of months, boxing related?
Boxing related. What have we got? The first, I suppose it'll be the. Actually, you know what? It'll be Joseph Parker. I'll try and do a few things around Joe in the lead up to that fight. First one domestically, I suppose, will be Liam Wilson, the Wilson Dib fight, or we'll try and get out to the Tyson Pedro fight in Penrith in a couple of weeks. First things first, though, this week, it's Monday. We're talking now. The UFC's in Sydney this weekend, so the next sort of 6 days is all UFC. So. Hopefully no sort of breaking boxing news over the next little bit, because I'll be tied up for a little while. But getting ready to launch into a big sort of 2025. Again, I know you don't like to get out of the month that we're in, but I can't not mention the absolute shock of Brock Jarvis, Keith Thurman coming up in March. I think I messaged you. I might have, when someone told me, I was like, you got that wrong. Like, one of the names is wrong. But, incredible. First, I think it would be the first main event pay-per-view, no limit pay-per-view of 2025, and didn't have that on my bingo card, but pretty pumped for it.
No, and, I'm sure the debate will be had in coming pods further down the track. Should that be a pay-per-view? Absolutely not, but whatever. I blame Foxtel for all that. But, that's I'm not trying to get you implicated in my negativity and my vendetta against Foxtel. But, I don't know what was weirder, the actual fight being announced or their awkward as hell trash talk to each other at that press conference. That was horrible, wasn't it?
It was weird, too, because Thurman was on the satellite or whatever. So there was a delay. So he'd say something, we'd get it. Obviously, there's a delay at his end. It just was like, all right, we're everyone's about 2 seconds out. So, but once Thurman arrives in Australia, I think it'll be good. He's great showman, great talker. I got him on Zoom almost a year ago now, like almost to the day, I think. I had him on a Zoom when he was fighting Tim, when he was still in that fight. And the media guy said, you got a tight 20 minutes because we got other stuff to do. And I was like, cool. And like a page of questions. I reckon I asked 3 questions because that guy can talk. Like, he's a world champion boxer. He's a better talker. He can just talk and talk and talk and talk, which is great. It's great for me, but I didn't get through even a quarter of my questions that I had written down.
Oh, he'll be fun out here on Fight Week, I'm sure.
He will be, yeah.
You'll have some dealings with him then as well. But we might have to get you on the pod again from that media room, like we did last year from Vegas. But we'll see how we go. But I've taken enough of your time, Brendan. Thanks so much for coming back on the pod, mate. I always have an absolute ton of fun chatting to you. And congratulations on all the work you did last year. It was a massive 2024. I have absolutely no doubt this year's going to be just as successful, if not even more so. Thanks for what you do, mate. We love all the Fight Week content, the interviews with the fighters, all that sort of stuff. If it wasn't guys like you doing what you do, we as fans, we wouldn't know anything about the fighters that we're fans of and the sport itself. So I know sometimes it can be sort of like a thankless job doing what you do and filing stories and working your ass off on fight night, but it is truly appreciated, mate. And all the best for the coming year. I hope you're busy.
Awesome, mate. Appreciate the kind words and always love coming on and chatting boxing with you. Like, I think the first couple of times, like, we'll go for half an hour, and I don't know what it's been like, well over an hour, but it's always a great chat. It's literally we'll stay here and talk boxing for hours or fighting for hours. Always.
Sorry, mate, but did you notice now, like this, when I have certain people back on, and you're definitely one of them, I don't even talk about a time limit anymore. Like, we'll just go until
we'll just go.
But it's so much fun, mate. So
awesome. Yeah, appreciate you having me on, and likewise, man. Like what you're doing and the podcast and social media stuff as well. You're on YouTube now, which is awesome. So yeah, man. The more people in the, I suppose, media or whatever you want to call it, sort of area, the better. More podcasts, more YouTube channels. It's all good. So yeah, looking forward to doing it again already.
Absolutely, mate. We'll just stay on the line quickly, Brendan, because this just takes a few minutes to upload. But yeah, thanks again, mate. And I'm sure I'll be bothering you again in the not too distant future.
Not a bother at all, man.
All right, guys, and there we had it. That was my chat with Brendan Bradford, covering all things first part of 2025 in boxing in Australia and overseas. We covered it all. Brendan's so much fun to talk to. I'm sure you guys could tell I was having the time of my life. And there's a reason why I reach out to Brendan quite regularly, because just selfishly and from my point of view, I just really like chatting to him, and we always have such a good, genuinely fun time. I think, at least anyway, at least I do on my end. So, yeah, guys, as always mentioned, the links to follow along with Brendan's excellent work are all in the description of this episode, and I would strongly urge you to support Brendan. He's a massive cog in the machine of growing this sport's popularity. You know, he's literally doing the on-ground work to get this sport into more people's eyeballs, and that can only be a good thing for the sport itself, the fighters, and us, the fans. It'll only increase the accessibility of our favourite sport. So yeah, I would strongly urge you to get on board with Brendan, and not only would you be doing a great thing for boxing, but you'd also be supporting a good bloke. So yeah, if you want to do that, those links are in the description of this episode. So guys, first pod for the year. We're off and running. So I spoke about it a little bit on previous pods, but yeah, I thought 2024 on the pod, we hit the ground running, man. I was super pumped with the first couple of months, and then, yeah, as I've described, hit the biggest roadblock I've ever had, just with knockbacks and ghostings and cancellations. So we had a big break. We had a big, I think it was a 4-month break in the end, which is obviously not ideal, and it wasn't intended. So this year, definitely the big focus for me is consistency. I really want to stick to the monthly schedule, and I'm going to be doing my best. Surely, Sam Goodman style, we can't get any more bad luck. So surely the bad luck's behind us. It's a new year, it's new positivity, and we're going to pump out that consistency throughout this year is the plan. So yeah, bear with me, guys. I will be trying my best. So if you guys want to get in contact with me, you can email the pod at tuscpod@gmail.com. That's tuspod@gmail.com. If you want to throw a tweet at me, you can do that at delivery_man2. We've also got the Insta page and also the YouTube page now as well, guys, if you want to leave a comment or whatever. Previously, like I've always maintained with all the audio platforms, we're on iTunes, Spotify, all that sort of stuff. You know, I'm not going to demand anyone like and subscribe and share and all that sort of stuff. I think listening or watching now is more than an obligation. Not that there is one to support this pod anyway. But yeah, if you'd like to, it is all massively appreciated. In addition to pumping out stuff, yeah, well, hopefully every month. I was going to say every month, but sometimes it doesn't happen. So it's all good either way. But if you want to get in contact with me for whatever reason, you certainly can do it there. And I've also had, not people have a go at me, but also like tell me they disagree with certain things I've said. And yeah, just opening up the lines of discussion, which is all good. I take all feedback. It's all constructive. So we're all good. So yeah, if you want to do that, that is how you can do it. But guys, let's leave it there. We've got some good stuff coming up this month. We spoke about it with Brendan. It's going to be awesome. It's mainly the back end of the month is pretty loaded, but we've got a few Aussies in action. As always, best of luck to them moving forward. I'll be watching. I'm pretty sure you guys will be watching. And yeah, enjoy the fights, and I'll chat to you next one.
Well, let's travel. Had a change. Living like there's no tomorrow, then tomorrow came. Going all out. I was living like there's no tomorrow, then tomorrow came.
Got the wake up call, laughing through the window frame.